The content in this magazine could contain references of topics and difficult subject matter that may be triggering. Please honor yourself, inner knowing, and proceed with whatever help or guidance you feel is intuitively aligned. Welcome to Sovereign Magazine Podcast. I'm Nicole George, CEO and founder of Sovereign. I'm so happy you are here. We are the magazine, podcast, and community guiding 5 million women to their sovereign selves. From heart-led conversations to magical meditations, our inspiring guests will show you how they can help you step into your sovereign self. Are you ready to listen to your inner voice and step into your power? Then keep listening to hear all of the intuitive messages meant for you today. Hello. Today I have the privilege of reconnecting with Chris Melville, Sovereign Magazine's in-house coach. She helps solopreneurs who are self-sabotaging their business through lack of self-belief, confidence, and business knowledge. Alongside her transformative coaching sessions and workshops for the Sovereign community, Chris runs a thriving coaching practice and is a certified rapid transformational therapy practitioner. With over 30 years of corporate experience, she is passionate about empowering women to overcome mindset challenges and build thriving businesses. She is a true expert in personal empowerment and helps others to step boldly into their power. Welcome back, Chris.
It's so nice to be back.
Yes, today we're talking about power and ego, which is our theme for our March new moon issue. And in your article, Power minus Ego equals Service, you explore the difference between power that uplifts and power that controls, and you draw upon your own contrasting experiences in corporate leadership. So why don't you share with our audience your story about two very different bosses and how they taught you about power?
Okay, so the first boss that I talk about, my lovely boss, I worked for her just as I was getting married. I actually got married while I was still working with her. And she was so empowering. She gave me so much responsibility and she didn't micromanage at all. And it was amazing. But in those days, nobody did flexible working. And the company I worked for, it was a litter agency, and the 3 agents were women. 3 of the 4 assistants were women, and the accountant was a woman. She was very female, obviously female dominated. And she was a single mom. And she wanted to have some time with her. So she was allowed to work from home 2 days a week. I think she worked from home both days. I remember she might have worked from home one day and had one day off. But she had that flexibility that was unheard of in the corporate world at the time. And I just remember at one point she was saying to me, she said something to me, that just stuck with me forever. And she's like, if you ever do decide to have children, always ask for what you need in order to balance your work and your life. She said, don't be afraid to, because if the business values you, they will make room for you. And that changed everything for me. When I had my kids, flexible working wasn't a thing because I had that. I had a voice in my head. I wasn't afraid to ask. I don't know what I would have done if they had said no. But, I made the request and I got it. And then I had another boss that, it presented as ego, but as most big ego issues are based in, it came from a place of insecurity. Real insecurity. Somebody who was working in an industry that he had always worked in, but he was now running a very big company that he hadn't done before. And there were shareholders and there was chairman. And I noticed like the biggest temper tantrums are the biggest temper tantrums. But they happened when he was afraid that something had been done or had happened that would make him look bad in front of the shareholders or in front of the board. And I could see it. It took me a little while to be able to put it back to that. But the temper tantrums were blame. They were lashing out. They were bullying. So there was absolutely no sense of empowerment.
Yeah. Well, that's because oftentimes women, I believe, hesitate to claim their power because they've been either shot down or shrunken or even emotionally abused at points. And so, redefining our power as women, we kind of have to look at it from the past, which we're not quite finished with it, but the patriarchal lens, and we're moving into the Aquarian age. And so now we're able to harness our power within a little bit more versus being overpowered by somebody else. And so I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about what does this power within look like in the body, especially in leadership, and how can we harness it or nourish it on a daily basis?
I think that kind of power where we're empowering other people, it has to come from a place of revealed sense of self. Because if you feel vulnerable in your ability to deliver, you're worried about how other people are going to see you, you're going to snatch control. Yeah. And when you feel threatened, you're going to shout. The inner child comes out to play, right? The inner child takes the wheel and just causes the biggest scene. If you think about, for anybody who saw the Barbie movie, think about the time that Barbie had control of the wheel and she's like driving the car off the cliff and Ken's in the back. That's what happens when your inner child comes out. So for me, the first thing is like, if you want to be a better leader, you need to be healed. You need to be secure in yourself. Because when we are secure in ourselves and we're not fighting to look after ourselves and protect ourselves, that's when our self-preservation is taken care of. So now we can look outwards and we can be gracious and we can praise without worrying that if I praise somebody, if you're in the corporate world and you praise somebody, your boss is going to think that, well, even you're praising them, so they must be doing a better job than you're doing. It means that we can pull people up alongside of us. I have no problem at all recommending other coaches if I think like I'm not the right coach for you, but you know what? I know somebody who would be amazing for you. Why wouldn't I recommend that person? But if I was insecure, it'd be like, well, no, I'm probably not the right coach for you, but I want you to work with me anyways. And that's it. And even if you say no, I'm not going to, well, fine. You said no, you rejected me. I'm not going to tell you somebody who could help you. So it is about being healed so that we're not always trying to protect ourselves. We're not always in a state of self-preservation, because if you're always looking in, you can't look out.
Inside the Sovereign community, you'll find more than a social platform. You will find many private spaces led by women who walk the path with you, like Abby from Canada. Connect with her in her sacred space called Reclaimed and Rise. Step into the Maven Haven with Ebony from the UK, or join the Open Heart Collective with Bonnie from the US. These are just some of the soul sanctuaries curated by conscious women for conscious connection. Come find your space inside the Sovereign community today. Okay, I'm going to move us into steps to our sovereign self. And you don't know the question I'm going to ask. That's okay. We can always switch up the format. I'm always willing to do that. So when we speak of business, okay, and we're thinking of power and ego, I really want to talk about raising prices, boundaries, using your voice for acts of service rather than ego, and how women can learn to trust that their expansion is actually a gift and not a threat.
Okay, let's go back to kind of the start of that. When it comes to money, that's just money mindset. And we've talked about this in a previous podcast. Maybe you'll put it in the link. Go back and listen to it, because it is, we always hit the ceilings, right? And we have to be able to move past the ceilings. When we talk about boundaries, the more healed you are, the better off you're going to be with boundaries, because it's self-protection in a different way. It's a healthy form of self-protection. It's not like self-protection to stop being rejected or being ostracized. It's self-protection to make sure that you don't wear yourself out, that you're not too exhausted to be able to perform, that you show up in the best way possible for your client, whatever kind of service-based solopreneur you are. And the boundaries then become a outward focus version of self-protection. I am protecting my energy, but I'm protecting it so I can be of more service to others.
Yeah. I have often found that when I'm making decisions that are too quick, they're too rushed, there's a sense of urgency to them. That's often my ego. And when I can pause or slow down, the results are so much better. I'm
Mhm.
not so triggered. My old stories come through around what's happening. Like, for example, I'll just share that we're recording on one podcast platform right now, and I had gotten the recommendation from a couple of people to try a different recording podcast platform. And because this platform I had kind of messed me around a little bit and I was a little upset. And I had told them that I was upset. And my husband was like, see, there you go again. You've had to go back to them and you told them all these things. And that was from ego, right? So now I'm back to the platform that kind of ticked me off, but I like their service. But the platform that I was supposedly happy with because they were a new service, they gave me garbage service. And I was actually more
Yeah.
unhappy with them. And so that's a perfect example of me not slowing down, really evaluating the situation, looking at the services, enjoying the process of trying to discern for myself what would be better for the organization, and really running that whole thing from ego. And so I can look
Yeah.
back and look at it from my personal perspective of the urgency and the fast pacedness of my decision versus being in a more grounded state.
Yeah, so what I want to pick up on there is in our life, when do we tend to make fast decisions?
When we feel pressured.
When we feel threatened, when we're scared. Sometimes we're scared and we're like, I'm going to make the fastest decision possible to get me out of here. Yeah. May not be the right. It is probably better to stay in the face of fear. So when we talk about ego coming from a place of fear, we're subconsciously, we're recognizing the fear and we're reaching for the habit that we always use when we're afraid. And it is that fast decision. What's the fastest way to move me away from this? Yeah. I really think that so many times we confuse ego with fear. I really do. Because it's not ego to expect a decent service. It's not ego to want to make things easier for you and your business, for your team when it comes to editing, to make sure that your clients who are coming on the podcast are getting the most seamless and easiest experience possible, and that you're delivering a great product for the audience. That's not ego. That's like, you know what, if this doesn't work, I may not be able to do my podcast anymore. Or I may lose a client because, there's fear wrapped up in them. And instead of beating yourself up and saying it's ego, why don't you take a step back and just say, what was I afraid of?
Yeah, I know exactly what it was. They raised their prices and I wasn't even using the service that they raised them for. And it really pissed me off, to be honest with you, because I was like, I've been happy at the price point that we're at. We don't need this service that you're now charging me 40% more for per month. And like, why am I having to pay for something that I don't need? Like, that really bothers me. And so it was a principle thing for me.
Sounds pretty justified to me.
Right. But then
So is it ego or is it
I don't know.
a logical decision?
Yeah. I mean,
A logical frustration?
yeah, perhaps a logical frustration, but it's more the process of how I went about it. That was ego. It was the
Little temper tantrum.
temper tantrum. Luckily, I didn't cancel the subscription and I tried the other one first. And so It was only a couple of podcasts that I had to move back over to the other platform, but it was the urgency behind it that I felt, that feeling in my body.
Made you uncomfortable.
It did.
I just think before we go, it's not done trying to call you out and say, avoid the word ego. I think sometimes we use the word ego because we feel bad about how we've behaved. Oh, it's my ego. And it's like, sometimes there is a reason. Sometimes there's a justifiable reason. And we rarely ever use ego in a positive sense. We always tend to use it in a negative sense. And it's that kind of, be a little bit more gentle with yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
You can always call me out. It doesn't bother me at all. I'm an open book. Okay, well, if you are looking to explore more about your power, your ego, how can you be more of service, learning to be more grounded and trusting of yourself, Chris has no shortage of things that you can do with her this year. She's doing live coaching on our YouTube and Substack channel. She's in our community.sovereign-magazine.com. She's got accountability groups. All the details are in the show notes. If you want to find her and work with her, you can.
You got lots of ways for me to call you up.
Yes, she will definitely hold you accountable. All right. And she's back every new moon and full moon for another edition of our beautiful talks. So definitely like, share, and subscribe. All right, my lovely. We'll see you on the next one.
Thanks. See you next time.
Thanks for listening. I'll be back tomorrow with another soul-led entrepreneur here to help you step into your sovereign self. Subscribe to our magazine and podcast and join our global community for all the magic. Details to connect with today's guest or join the movement are in the show notes. And if you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review. It helps us reach our goal of guiding 5 million women to self-sovereignty.